When you think of a wedding night, you probably picture something romantic, right? A new beginning. For most people, it's supposed to be a dream. But for one young woman back in 1974, that dream was a complete and utter nightmare. We're about to dive into the story of a first night that started with absolute terror and ended with a truth that would change everything. So, on one side, you have the dream wedding rose petals, music, two people in love. This is the fantasy we're all sold. But then, on the other side, that was Sarah's reality. To her, that beautiful white bed didn't feel romantic. It looked like a grave. And the man in the room with her, he wasn't her partner. In her mind, he was her owner. This is the incredible gap between expectation and reality that kicks off our whole story. So, how in the world does a wedding night turn into a bride's worst nightmare? Well, it all started with one single desperate deal that completely sealed her fate. Let's meet Sarah. She's our narrator. It's 1974. She's only 20 years old, working in a library, dreaming about traveling, maybe falling in love one day. A pretty normal life. But that simple life is about to get turned completely upside down. It all really started one evening when she came home and found her father, this man she'd always seen as her rock, just broken. He had a gambling debt so bad it was crippling. He'd lost everything. The family home was gone, the man was sobbing, and in that moment of absolute desperation, he saw only one way out. And this was his solution? Some powerful man had bought his debt, and to make it all go away, he had a price. It wasn't money. He wanted a wife. He wanted Sarah. Can you imagine? In an instant, she went from being his daughter to being a bargaining chip, the last thing he had left to bet. And just like that, the monster's bargain was made. This wasn't going to be a marriage built on love or even hope. It was a wedding built on pure, paralyzing fear. And at the center of it all was the man she was forced to marry. So, who is this guy, James Sterling? Well, let's just say his reputation was something else. He was 10 years older than her, a powerful, ruthless businessman. The rumors around town painted him as a total monster. Cold as ice, a guy who could destroy companies and ruin lives without even blinking. People literally said he had no heart. And this is the man Sarah was about to call her husband. On her wedding day, they give her the Sterling family heirloom. But look at how she describes it, thick, heavy gold. For her, it wasn't a beautiful gift or a symbol of being welcomed into a family. It was cold, it was sharp, and it felt exactly like what she believed it was. A chain, a collar, proof that she'd been bought. The wedding itself was just as chilling. The vows felt more like a business contract. The kiss was quick, impersonal, loveless. And then the long car ride to their new home was in total agonizing silence. Both of them just pressed up against the car doors, as far away from each other as possible. You can just feel the dread building. Okay, so all of this tension, all of this fear, it all leads right here to the moment they get to the bedroom. This is when her terror just hits its absolute peak. It's like a countdown to something awful. In this giant, cold, silent house, it all comes down to one tiny sound. A sound she says that 50 years later still haunts her dreams. Click. That's it. The sound of the key turning in the lock. He locked the door behind them, and then he put the key in his pocket. She was trapped. And her mind is just racing. Why would you lock the door? Is it to stop her from running? Or is it so that nobody can hear her scream? Every horrible thing she had imagined was now locked in that room right there with her. She watches as he starts to take off his suit jacket, loosen his tie, and she's just frozen against the wall. The ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall sounds like a countdown to the pain she is absolutely certain is about to happen. She just closes her eyes and waits for the worst. But right there, in that moment of absolute terror, something happens that she never ever saw coming. This is the turning point, the moment this whole story flips on its head. It's when the monster she created in her mind starts to just become a man. He walks toward her, and she flinches. She's bracing herself. But his hands, they don't grab her. They go to her neck, so gently. And he's not trying to get to her dress.
He's trying to take off that heavy gold necklace, muttering about how it must be digging into her skin. And then the truth starts to come out, and she realizes it's all been one massive, terrible misunderstanding. See, his father owed Sarah's father a life debt from the war. So when James heard about the gambling mess, he offered to pay it all off, no strings attached. But Sarah's father was too proud for charity. He insisted on the marriage as a way to repay the favor. James never wanted to buy her at all. And then he says this. The biggest shock of the night, this cold, heartless monster was afraid, too. The reason he looked so stern and angry all day wasn't because he was a monster, it was because he was terrified. He saw how scared she was, and he thought she already hated him, and he had no idea how to fix it. So, once all that truth is out in the open, the fear just evaporates. And in its place, something totally new begins to grow. This is where their story really begins. And what breaks the incredibly tense, emotional silence after that huge revelation? The most human, relatable sound in the world. Her stomach lets out a massive grumble. She hadn't eaten all day, she was so scared, and her body finally just betrayed her. And that one small, embarrassing sound, it changed the entire dynamic. It completely broke the tension. And for the very first time, James Sterling actually smiled. A real, genuine smile that made his whole face light up. And you can see their new beginning perfectly in their first meal. I mean, the official wedding feast was all champagne and fancy cake with a room full of strangers, but their first meal together, it was 2 simple cheese sandwiches and some milk, sitting on the floor in their wedding clothes, finally just talking. Later that night, he gave her the entire bed and took the lumpy sofa for himself, promising he wouldn't touch her until she wanted him to. And in that moment, Sarah didn't feel passion. It wasn't lust. It was something so much deeper, so much more important. For the first time all day, she felt safe. So what can we take away from this whole crazy story? Well, it really shows us what true connection is built on. It's not about rushing things. True love waits. It listens. It's about using any power you have to protect someone, not to control them. And maybe most important of all, it should always, always feel safe. You know, Sarah and James went on to have a very happy 50-year marriage. But it all comes back to that one terrifying night. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What was the one feeling, the one lesson from that night that was strong enough to define half a century of love? It's a powerful thought that sometimes the strongest relationships aren't built on fireworks, but on a quiet, simple promise of safety.